found out about my wife was cheating on me on her business trip, so I got my revenge. My bride-to-be was cheating on me when we were supposed to be getting married. As a person who prides myself in perfection, I had never imagined finding myself in this situation. She had been sharing her bed with other men while I was preparing my mind for a wedding. The discovering that my wife-to-be of 6 months was cheating on me had almost weighed me down. But luckily for me, I wasn't a fool that believed in love, and I saw women for what they always were: liars. However, I had thought that I had everything about this woman figured out. Heck, that's why I had proposed. Not because of love or anything weird like emotions. I had also thought I had absolute control when it came to my relationship with her. But she goes and proves me right. I say right because I have never been wrong. I guess I could say I always expected this. Expected there to be a hitch in my relationship with women. Trust me, it began from when I was little. I was made to never rely on a woman's word because, as I said before, they were all liars. I had only decided to marry my fiancée because she seemed a tad bit different from the rest. Emphasis on tad bit. And I really thought she couldn't get the best of me. I should have trusted my instincts. Women were one and truly the same, and my friends had laughed their asses off when I had told them of my problem. So I have come to you Redditors for a solution. My wife-to-be was a hardcore career woman, a seasoned businesswoman whose 80% of her business transactions involved traveling and meeting people from all walks of life. This could sometimes take the whole weekdays, leaving her with only weekends for other things. I had advised her shortly after I had proposed to stop her work, as I was well-to-do and could take care of her. This she had strongly refused, always claiming to be an independent lady. Mind you, that's not how I met her when we started dating. I hate not being in control, and I told her to quit, but now I see the reason why she had refused to leave her job. That's because she was sharing another man's bed under the pretext of traveling for business. I had no idea how I had never looked into whatever she was doing. I had overlooked because I had thought everything was going well. Our wedding plans were already underway, and she goes ahead to do that. Can you imagine the audacity of women? They're all the same, professing their undying love and devotion and accepting your ring 1 minute, then sharing another man's bed the next. Just like I had said earlier, weekends are the only time available for us to see and continue our wedding plans. She had accepted her job once we had started discussing about getting married. I hadn't thought much of a to-be-wedded couple not spending time together. I mean, we had the rest of our lives to spend together, so I hadn't protested her job at first. But when it became something she carried on her head always, I began to complain. I am a man, of course. I have needs. Needs she was supposed to be satisfying, but she had taken it upon herself to become Forbes' most independent fiancé, coming up with excuses left and right. Stupid excuses now that I think about them. Terribly stupid excuses that I should have seen right through. When did I begin to notice something was off about her attitude? The day we were supposed to go cake tasting, and then she called to say she won't be able to make it back from wherever her work had taken her. This woman had slied me, and she had sounded breathless while at it, like she had just finished tumbling in the sheets or she was getting ready to begin. And I had taken it at that moment. That's what irks me. I hadn't demanded that she come home immediately. I had just said okay and thought of way to reschedule cake tasting. It's like our positions had switched, and I was the one with the apron around my neck, baking cookies and rescheduling cake tasting. She was undermining my mojo. Well, I wouldn't have even come to this realization that something was off if not for the signs, the various signs. After that incident, I began to take note of the signs, although not consciously, but at the back of my head. I was storing them there. We always spent most weekends together when she was done traveling around the world. On some days, it seemed like her facade would slip and she'll start giving me attitude. From talking back at me to replying me under her breath to thinking she ought to have a say in everything. It was like she was changing overnight and her true colors were beginning to show. It seemed the man she was sharing her bed with was giving her some courage. If not for the signs, I would have never given it a place in my heart to suspect that my wife-to-be was cheating on me. So I decided to look into it. But before I go into that, let me tell you a little bit of myself and how I had met my fiancée and got up to the stage of proposing. My name is Steve. I am 31 years old, 6'5" tall, heavily built and athletic, handsome and easily attract the opposite sex. I'm not bragging, this is just who I am. And it takes an assertive man, someone who knows who they are and what they want, to be able to conquer the world. I hold shares with top IT company in the States, and I'm building a startup. My life may sound novel and one for the books, but I'm simply an ambitious and confident man. My fiance's name is Nuella, and she's 28 years old. I met my wife to be at a mutual friend's get-together party. I'll say what had attracted me to her was that out of the 10 pretty women that were at the party, she was among the 3 that didn't flaunt herself in front of me. Given that the other 2 were already married, she was the only one that didn't light up like she had seen a money bag when she saw me. And the fact that she was also beautiful too. Those were the things that drew me to her. She ticked all the boxes of a beautiful woman. Hair, eyes, chin, stature, and she carried herself with this elegant grace. She was the price at the party, and she knew it. This is why I and the other men at the party were attracted to her, but like attracts like, and she found her way to me. After that, we began to see more of each other at various events. We ran in the same groups, it had seemed. She was friends with my friends, so of course my friends matched us. Every party I was invited to, she was somehow there. And every party she was invited to, my friends made sure I was there too. I got to know she was in her 3rd year in college at Florida State University studying business administration. So not only was she pretty, she was also smart and respectful of my every decision during the few times we hung out. At the time, she was 24 and I was 27, and not getting any younger according to my mother, who had been hassling me at that time to enter a serious relationship. Well, that's how I and Nuella started dating. During our dating days, we were known as the power couple among our friends. I hadn't began dating my fiancé because of love, and she knew. That's why we made the power couple. There wasn't some sappy emotion getting in the way of our goals. I wanted a relationship and could provide. She also wanted a relationship and needed someone that could provide. The cherry on top? She was obedient and never questioned my decisions. So I made sure she was well cared for while we were dating. During her graduation 2 years later, I attended alongside her parents, and that's when I proposed. While we were having dinner at my home in front of her family and our mutual friends, I popped out a ring. No, I didn't kneel because that would have been degrading of my character, but I asked in the most polite manner. Her parents were there after all. I didn't want them to think their daughter would be marrying someone who couldn't care for her. Most of my friends had thought I had gone and fallen in love. They had termed it the unemotional Steve gains his first emotion, but they didn't know I wasn't proposing out of love, but out of a sense of responsibility for my family. I hadn't really cared for the emotion love. I still don't, by the way. Imagine what state I would have been in if I had been in love and she cheated on me. Lol, I would probably have keeled over like a weak man with a 70-plus heart. Well, after I had proposed, that's when my fiancé went and accepted the job offer that set about this chain of terrible events. The day she had accepted the job, she had seemed so pleased and couldn't wait to start despite my warnings about her discarding the job. According to her, the job was the first real thing she had ever gotten from her hard work and sweat, and she would just test the waters with it. As someone who loves control, I should probably have dismissed any talks of her accepting the job then and there, but she was a person and had the right to choose for herself, so I let her. I thought that after testing the waters and seeing how harsh the employment world was, she would quit after 2 weeks. But it seemed she was enjoying her freedom even more because after 6 months of testing the waters, she had the audacity to test other men in her bed. The little witch. Enough of the background story and on to how I had caught my fiancé cheating on me on one of her business trips. I hate being played for a fool, but my fiancé played me like a violin expert. Like I had told you all earlier, I began noticing some signs that something was off. The prolonged work trips, the distancing, the attitude, everything was as clear as daylight. So like I said, I had to look into it to see if it was just me being overbearing. She was slowly turning me into a nagging person. Luckily, I came across an old college friend of mine. We used to see each other in the library almost at the same time, so from there we had become study buddies, although we didn't have the same majors. Anyway, we had lost contact since we had graduated, and I just happened to bump into him during one of my stops at Starbucks to get a coffee. Turned out he was a private investigator now, and I teased about our college days. We began meeting up often, and I thought that maybe he could help me with my problems. I told him about my concerns about my fiancée and told him all about how her business trips were becoming suspicious. He gave me a simple test to carry out on her anytime I had the opportunity to do so. The opportunity to test out what he had told me came about a month later. During one of the weekends my fiancée deemed it fit to come back from her business trips, the test naturally took place even without my planning it. She had left her handset in the sitting room when it rang. I wanted to get her the device when she appeared from the door, and with the phone in my hand told me that I had no right to sneak through her things and what had happened to her privacy. This was someone I was supposed to marry in 3 weeks. My fiancé had the audacity to say I was doing too much in our relationship. This was also the same person who always agreed to everything I do and respected my decisions. In her own words, my domineering control was beginning to get to her in our relationship, and it was becoming annoying. She even threatened to take a walk out of the marriage if I continued to behave like that and literally stomped out of the room. I mean, she had stomped her feet out of the room in a tantrum like a toddler, just because I had wanted to hand over her phone that was ringing. I hadn't even gotten a look at who was calling because she had snatched it out of my hands like a guilty witch. To say that I was shocked stupid by my fiancé's outburst would be stating the obvious. In fact, I was dazed and left at a loss for words. Even now, as I recall the events, I can still feel the shock traveling up my spine. For the first time in my life since I had become old enough to know right from wrong, a woman had gotten the best of me. Do you know what was even worse? She claimed I had behaved weirdly, and as a result decided to stay away for a week. She stayed away from me for a week. No calls, no texts, not even a bird with a note. It was in that week, as I replayed the events that had led up to it, to come to the conclusion that she was cheating on me. It was as obvious as a slap on my cheek. And that's how I had felt. Like I had been slapped. I just had to prove that she was cheating. The only way I could do that and be sure was to enlist the help of someone I trusted, and who better than the person who had made me see clearly. I couldn't trust my other friends with this news because they all probably thought I was happily in love. Heck, my wedding was supposedly to be in 2 weeks. Well, there wasn't going to be a wedding after all. I called my old college friend and we met up at our usual spot. Then I told him all the events that had happened, from how the phone test's opportunity had fallen into my lap and the reactions I got from my cheating fiancée after. I even told him how she didn't even speak to me for a whole week because of that. That was how I hired my friend to trail my fiancée on her business trip a week before our supposed wedding week. Of course, she didn't know there wasn't going to be any wedding longer, although I'm sure she was hoping on that. How could someone cut off a person they were supposed to be getting married to for a whole week before the wedding? How could someone even be okay with going away for week-long trips when she was about to get married? Well, I finally knew the answers. She was okay with it because whoever she was, Gudasi was worth it, and I was just a worthless piece of trash who gave her a ring on her finger. At the end of the week, it was established beyond all doubt that my fiancé was cheating on me. And do you all want to guess with who? I couldn't believe it myself when I was told. It turned out she was having all those weekdays and weekend trysts with her first love, whom she happened to meet in another town during one of her numerous travels. According to my PI friend, my fiancé had a lover right from her college days before we started dating. At least it hadn't been right underneath my nose. That would have made me more madder than I already was. My PI friend dropped evidence to attest to my wife to B's movement with her lover that included pictures of them in romantic outing in a beach, flocking together in hotels. My friend even pulled evidence of extracted text and video messages between my cheating fiancé and her lover in the past 3 months. The text that she had been so jumpy for me to see was right on my fingertips, and my anger was hot enough to prepare popcorn. To say I was beyond livid was an understatement. I hated being played above anything else, and she had the audacity to pretend. Growing up with 4 brothers was a big eye-opener to me. As young boys, no day passes without competitions amongst us in trying to prove who is more masculine. This continued on, and as a result grew into a competition will be more attractive to the opposite sex. One constant and recurring factor then was that I always beat them all. I could never be played. I prided myself in always being ahead of my peers, and now a woman had managed to play me. My fiancée was the only woman who I had allowed close to my heart. I didn't trust women in general, as I had stated earlier, and now I had finally let someone in, and she goes ahead to play me like a toy. One thing was for certain: she wasn't going to get away with it. I wasn't going to sit still and watch her play me for a fool. This was what she was going to continue with when we got married, or it seemed she was planning to jilt me at the altar because I couldn't even begin to understand how she planned on continuing her charade and how long she planned to continue it. Well, one thing was for certain, I was still going to go ahead with the wedding. Everything was already in place, the cake, the food, the venue. Stopping the wedding now would be an embarrassment to my name, and the person I wanted to shame was my cheating fiancé. And besides, I hated to waste money. Our wedding day came and I confirmed that my fiancé didn't plan to jilt me at the altar. In fact, she had seemed excited for the wedding if the events of the past week were anything to judge by. She had come home and began to act all loving and sweet, agreeing with everything I said, doing her wifely duties. She had even gotten me a gift to celebrate our coming nuptials. Lol. If only she knew what was coming to her. There would be no wedding. I was going to make sure that she would regret ever deciding to cheat on me. The priest began to recite the vows and asked my fiancée to repeat after him. She happily said her vows, even having the mind to look me in the eye with emotion and say how much she loved me and how she couldn't wait to spend the rest of her life with me. All lies. The way she lied so perfectly well was something that colleges needed to put on as one of the courses to be studied. So smooth with no hitch or even loss of eye contact. When it came to my turn, I kept silent as the priest began to recite the vows and the murmurs began immediately. You all should have seen as the color bleached from my fiancé's face. She had turned ghost white behind pounds of makeup that had been caked into her face. The priest began the vows again, his face confused, and I still kept silent. When the priest stopped trying, I took the mic from him and announced that there will be no wedding, but my guests were free to enjoy the food and the premium entertainment in the reception hall. It was comical watching the look on my cheating fiancé's face. The real disgrace hadn't even begun. I scanned through the crowd, and as expected, she dared invite her lover to come be witness her wedding. Well, less work for me trying to find the man. I walked away with my fiancé standing at the altar and left. Update 2. Hi Redditors. I know most of you have been wondering what happened next after I found out my fiancé was cheating on me and left her at the altar and if she had tried to get in contact with me. A lot of you were probably wondering if I had confronted her or what I had done. This is a follow-up update on my experience with my cheating fiancé. After I jilted her at the altar with no reason, I had blocked her and every of my friend and went about my business for a year. I guess you could say I gave her breathing space to forget about me. But I didn't forget about her. I had a lot in store for her. I still hadn't planned on how I would play like she had tried to play during the first 3 months of my hiatus from my cheating fiancé. However, it had come to me as a notification for her birthday popped up on my phone screen. I was going to play her big time. Thanks to my friend, I still kept tabs on my ex-fiancé and her whereabouts and doings. She was no longer traveling the world like she was doing when we were about to get married, and there was no sign of her first lover in sight. It seemed he had also jilted her as I did. Smart man. Losing credibility in front of another man over a woman was a foolish move. Men ruled the world, not women. And I believed he had also been played too, if I recall the look on his face at the wedding. He looked like he couldn't believe his love was getting married. She had played the two of us, and she was definitely going to get what was coming for her. First up was her job. My friend had related to me that she had lost her job. I might have had something to do with that. It was just a simple submission of evidence of her neglecting her work duties and frolicking with her lover. I didn't know if that was all that it took for them to fire her from her job, but it served the purpose. She still got fired. It was, however, just the tip of the iceberg. I had planned on isolating her from her close friends and family by showing them the two-timer that she was. It just irks me that I hadn't noticed it all those times. Well, while I thought of my plan to humiliate her, I froze every access she had to my accounts. With no job, she had probably thought there was still hope with her having access to my credit cards. Lol. Not on my watch. I was going to strip away every bit of control she had. She was going to feel humiliated. Like I said earlier, the plan came to me when I got a notification of her birthday. By this time, she had already lost her job and didn't have any access to my accounts. This was the time where she'll need someone to be by her side. And it struck me. What if I become that person, and I did? I opened up new social media accounts and sent her friend requests on each one. When she had accepted my friend request, I sent her a text that said I wanted to get to know her, and that's how we started talking. However, she didn't know it was I she was talking to. My username was David, and I was from up north on my profile. I was a middle-aged banker who was looking to have new friend. So she thought she was talking to a David, and she fell for it. As predicted. We continued chatting over the phone over the course of the year, and during one of those times I decided to drop a bomb question and ask if she had been married before. And I'm sure you've already guessed her answer to that question. Once a liar, always a liar. I had even made the question specific in case she tried to twist it. I had asked if she had been nearly married or even had a boyfriend. But my gullible ex-fiancé had lied her head off that she hadn't dated since she left college. Lol. I guess I was that quick to be forgotten. But she won't forget me for long. She would remember me soon enough. During the course of our chat, my ex-fiancé went ahead and fell in love. According to her, she had been so lonely when I had come into her life, and I knew how to treat a woman properly. In my head, she was spilling a whole lot of trash. Trash talk, because I knew the next opportunity she saw, she was going to find a way to cheat. There was a reason why I never trusted women. Even my own mother lied. I decided to play along and have fun at her expense. Our year was almost up and I needed a way to test if she was being truthful. Lol, even relating the word to anything my ex-fiancé made me want to hurl. She wasn't going to change, but I had to test her before making my plan complete. I know you all on this platform would think I'm taking it too far with her, that since I've ghosted her, I should probably move on with my life. But if I do that, my ex-fiancé was probably going to do the same thing to the next unsuspecting man that comes her way. She wasn't going to learn without a lesson being taught, and I couldn't let her go after she had taken me for granted. That wasn't going to happen. I didn't want the next person to have to plan out a revenge that I could have gotten to. Well, I wasn't going to do too much. I had left her at the altar with no repercussion, and I strongly feel she was going to pull the same stunt on David, so I had to test her out. As David, I agreed to us dating and entering into an exclusive relationship. This was how I was going to test her. A year has gone by and I decided to come back into my ex-fiancé's life, but not as the boyfriend she claimed to love, but as the groom that had jilted her at the altar. My true self. I couldn't believe my mind could be as twisted as this. Well, I couldn't have acquired so many shares in top companies without being smart. And like I said, I like to be ahead of my peers. My mind had been sharpened from an early age. I sent a text to my ex-fiancé and asked that we meet up in our usual cafe. I got there early, ahead of the scheduled time, so I would be able to see the reaction on her face when she walked in. This way, she didn't have the chance to hide the expression on her face when she saw me. And, you wouldn't guess it, Redditors, her experience was one for the books when she walked into the cafe and saw me. It was pure shock before she hid her emotions. She had thought I was done with her. She didn't know the game was just beginning with me, and I intended to have my fun. We talked, asking each other how we've been for the past year, and I once again asked her if there was anyone in her life at the moment, and of course she lied once again. At the moment, I began thinking if she could easily slip out lies like that, it meant she had been lying to me throughout our whole relationship. Then I dropped the bomb. I told her I wanted to go ahead with the wedding. I had shocked my ex-fiancé twice within an hour. But she didn't refuse my proposal. She had even looked excited at the idea of being a bride again. She was so predictable. The little witch was as predictable as they come, and I was sick of it. My plan was falling into place, Redditors. She had fallen for the trap, and I wasn't going to hold back in showing her people how she had been while we were engaged to be married. And this time she was doing it again. I told you all she wasn't going to change if she wasn't called out or taught a lesson. This was someone that had confessed her love to David before meeting with me, and she was accepting to wear my ring again. Trying to dupe the two of us at the same time once again. Do you guys know she even had the audacity to ask me why I had left her at the altar? She had the mind to ask why I didn't want to marry her then, and now I wanted to marry her. The way she put it, like she thought I was mad, but at least I wanted her in my madness. She probably thought she was so likable that I came back begging after a year later. I didn't deem her worthy of a response. She could think whatever she wanted. Well, we began planning the wedding. I told her it was to be in 2 weeks and she was to plan everything by herself. That was her punishment for leaving me to plan the last wedding. By the end of the 2 weeks, I fixed a meeting as David with her. Our very first meeting to celebrate 9 months of getting to know each other. Throughout the 2 weeks it took to plan another fake wedding, she didn't even show she was in love with another man or she was having conversations with another man. She treated me like an egg, all loving and caring and disgusting. You needed to be there to witness the change in her character. But I knew what was behind the facade. I couldn't be fooled twice. Heck, I couldn't even be fooled once, but I had slipped up and had paid for it. Now it was time for her to pay all she had done. The day of the wedding came and we exchanged our vows in front of the fake priest whom I had hired to oversee the ceremony. I had also faked my signature on the marriage certificate because there was no way I was getting married to the lying witch, not even by mistake. Time for the reception and my wife had suddenly disappeared from her bridal suite. Of course I knew where she was. She was planning on meeting up with David at the very same hotel. I had arranged it so the meeting would happen in the very same place my wedding reception was supposed to be happening. I had even hired a guy to act as David, all to catch her in the act. Everyone began looking for the bride, and I got a call that she was in the room. I connected my phone to a projector in the wedding reception hall where our guests were already seated. My ex-fiance's face came on the screen with the guy I had hired to be David, and her words were loud enough for everyone to hear. She confessed her love to David on screen in front of all the guests we had invited, and I could finally breathe. Everything had come into play. My guests began murmuring immediately and the projector was disconnected. I sent people to go fetch my wife for our reception. The amount of fun I was having, you all needed to see how everything had played out. My ex-fiancée decided to grace the reception hall, not knowing the disgrace she had brought upon herself. Once she entered, I connected my phone to the projector that was supposed to be showing goodwill messages from our friends and family towards our marriage and showed the evidence of her cheating on me before our wedding day. Luckily, I hadn't invited my family to this second disaster of a wedding. It was only my few friends I had invited and left the remainder of the guest list up to her. So the hall was filled to the brim with her people witnessing what a two-timer she was. I decided to replay her conversation in the hotel room with David again, and watched how the color drained from her face with shock. That color was the color of sweet victory. Next time she wasn't going to try to play men, and if she did, her friends would surely call her out on it. One thing was for certain, she wasn't going to be getting married again anytime soon, at least not in front of this crowd that had just witnessed her true colors. Except she moved to a different country. My ex-fiance's life was totally ruined in front of the people she called her family and friends. I took the fake wedding certificate and tore it in front of her. I walked up to her and showed her the chats. I showed her that I was the Dave she was supposed to meet at the hotel room. I even showed her the recent texts of her telling me to wait until later that night before we could meet. I wondered how she had planned to sneak out of the house on our wedding night when she had sent the text. But I guess nothing could ever stop a two-timer from showing her ways. However, I had dealt her a big lesson that she was surely not going to forget in a long time. If she was, and I hope she was going to stop playing mind games with people. After that day, I never heard from my ex-fiancée again, and I was happy and content that I had played the player. Hey Redditors, I hope you've gotten to learn a thing or two from my experience. I know some of you would think I had gone a little too extreme in dealing with my ex-fiancée, but I have come across people like her more than once or twice in my lifetime. These category of people won't stop until they've been dealt a harsh blow that throws them back into reality. My ex-fiancée thought she was sleek and smart so she could play mind games with anyone. The lesson would serve as a reminder anytime she wants to try it again. Plus, I am now happy with myself from removing myself from her evil claws. It hadn't been a fun experience knowing I was being played for a fool by someone I wanted to marry, but now the experience has made me more self-aware when it comes to dealing with people, male or female. Thank you for sharing in my experience, and I really hope this doesn't happen to you too. Have a lovely day, Redditors. My wife ran away immediately. I told her I wanted a divorce just so she can stay married to me. I have never hated living in North Carolina like I do now. The laws that guide the divorce are making it extremely difficult for me to get out of this sham of a marriage with my alcohol-addicted wife. I just found out that she cheated on me, and now I want our marriage to end. The only problem is that even if I file for divorce now, I'll have to stay married to her for up to 1 more year while we live separately. She knows this, and that's why she confidently believes that I would never try divorcing her. Her ego and self-confidence in this matter is what is making me more determined to divorce her as fast as I can. I can't stand the thought of giving her an upper hand in this situation. I'm repulsed by the possibility of her thinking she has a hold of me. I'm ready to show that cheating woman that I'm more than ready to divorce her immediately. My name is Mason, and I'm a 31-year-old artist from North Carolina, USA. I also make and trade NFTs. I live in Asheville, which is a very large city in North Carolina. I'm married to Ava, and she's a 31-year-old artist from North Carolina too. Yes, my wife and I are artists. In fact, that's how we met. Ava and I met at an art exhibition 5 years ago, and the rest is history. I'll be truly honest with you guys. I'm finding it hard to write this story. I've never done something like this before, but I have to do this so I can keep being sane. I've been itching to share this exhausting story of mine with someone. But as a man, there are some things that aren't expected of you. It's easier sharing things like this with strangers that do not know you and can't really judge you than sharing this with friends or colleagues that would never look at you the same way. LOL, as if I can control the narrative of what another person does. I found out Ava cheated on me 2 weeks ago, and everything has literally gone downhill from there. I got back from work early and found used protection in the waste bin. She had slept off on the couch after taking too much alcohol. Yes, Ava is practically an alcohol addict. Before you judge me, let me tell you the truth. I didn't know Ava was addicted to alcohol until the 2nd year of our marriage, and we've been married for 4 years now. 2 years ago, after we left the art exhibition she organized, I caught her practically gulping down alcohol in the toilet. I know how disgusting that sounds, and trust me, I was disgusted too. I asked her why she was doing that, and she told me that the stress from planning her art exhibition and making the art pieces perfect had taken a toll on her. I didn't like the idea that she was stress drinking, but I understood her plight since I am an artist too, and I'm aware of how the tension can get under your skin. I told her there was nothing wrong in feeling stressed and that she didn't need to drink in the toilet or hide from me. I was very surprised that day because even though we went to clubs, Ava never drank alcohol. She always told me that she hated it. Well, I later discovered that she had an alcohol problem before we met and had gone to rehab. That's why she abstained when we met up to 2 years into our marriage before she got back to her addiction. Ava drank occasionally after that, but it was never serious. But it got worse 1 year ago, and I tried taking her back to rehab, but she refused. I didn't want to be the coward who left his wife at the most traumatizing moment in her life, so I tried my best to help her. I swore never to give up on helping her, but now I've realized that she took my generosity for kindness and is now cheating on me. I have been patient with Ava on many things. I don't understand why she would ever think of cheating on me. It's because of her alcohol problem that we decided not to try getting pregnant until she goes to rehab. That day when I got back from work and found her collapsed on the couch after drinking, I didn't expect to see used protection in the waste bin. I was 100% sure that I wasn't the one that used the protection. Most times after coming back from my work studio, Ava was drunk or she had a hangover. I couldn't sleep with her in that kind of state, so we haven't been together romantically for almost 2 months now. That's why seeing the used protection in the waste bin only meant she was cheating on me. I was very angry, and I am still very angry. I didn't mind tolerating all her flaws before because I know I'm not perfect too, and marriage is all about tolerating each other and accepting each other's flaws. But cheating is a flaw that I will never be willing to accept. The fact that Ava could cheat on me even after everything I have been through with her and how I have stood by her just goes to show how messed up people are. To what extent does someone have to really go before they get back the amount of respect they deserve? That night, Ava was still drunk, so I waited for her to get up in the morning. I wasted no time before I confronted her and demanded answers. Ava didn't recognize my claims. She insisted that the protection I'd seen in the waste bin was the ones we'd used more than 2 months ago. Can you believe just how stupid she thought I was? I refused to believe what she said and warned her to tell me the truth. Ava resisted all my advances and tried swaying me with her words. I don't tolerate betrayal, so I went outside the house and asked our gatekeeper, Luke, for the truth. He used to work for my parents before they moved to California, so he's basically my family friend. I didn't doubt his ability to be honest with me, and that's why I asked him to tell me the truth. Just like I suspected, he told me that a particular man had come to see Ava twice within the range of 3 days. I asked him if that same man came the day before, which was the day I found the protection in the waste bin. Luke affirmed that the same man had visited the day before. I thanked him before driving out of the house immediately. For the first 30 minutes, I just drove around the city and didn't stop anywhere in particular. I was engaged and needed to cool my temper. I finally stopped at a gym, and that was where I transferred all my aggression to the punching bag. I was very angry and didn't want to have a conversation with Ava in that state because I didn't trust what I might have ended up doing. When I got back to the house, I'd already made up my mind. There were no two ways about it. I knew that I wanted a divorce from Ava immediately. When I got to the house, she was busy having lunch like nothing happened. I didn't waste any time. I told her we needed a divorce immediately and that I could not forgive the fact that she cheated on me. At first, she tried saying she got drunk and blah, blah, blah. But when she noticed that I was not ready to change my decision, her true colors finally came out. I couldn't even recognize Ava again. Sure, I'd seen her in some of the worst phases of her life, but I'd never seen her in that evil state. She talked like a selfish person and acted nonchalant about cheating on me. She claimed that I stopped getting intimate with her, so she cheated. I had to do a double take and make sure I heard her twice. I didn't touch her for her own good. She was drunk every night, for crying out loud. And, excuse me? No one wants to get intimate with someone who could throw up any time. For her to accuse me of neglecting her and using that as an excuse for cheating gave me all the affirmation I needed. I needed to run from the marriage, not even walk out. I made it clear to her that I was going to file for divorce, and I gave her 2 days to leave the house. Trust me, that was just me being generous. I thought I'd gotten the biggest shock and betrayal of my life, and I honestly believed that there was nothing anyone could do to hurt me after what Ava had done. But I guess tell God your plans and watch him laugh, right? Ava did the worst thing possible the next day. I've never hated anyone this much, and after what she did, I don't think I can ever stand her presence. When I woke up the next morning, Ava was making breakfast. She slept in the living room while I slept in the room. Of course, I didn't leave my room for her. That's never going to happen. Ava didn't offer me breakfast, and I didn't care to ask. I planned on eating at a restaurant before going to work. I left for work after getting ready. Ava and I didn't speak or even greet each other. Even now, if you ask me what she wore that morning, I do not know because I couldn't stand her presence or bring myself to look at her in the face. After I got back from work that day, I realized that I'd been living with a scheming, conniving woman for over 4 years. Ava was nowhere to be found in the house, and all her things were gone. Her closet was practically empty, and not even a pair of shoes that belonged to her was left. Ava had left the house that day. I know you all are thinking that there's nothing wrong with that, and I should be happy that she left before the deadline I gave her. Well, I thought so too and didn't think there was any need for alarm. That was until the very next day, and the day after that, and 5 days later after, I continuously tried to reach out to her, and she never picked up. I had no idea where she was. The reason it was so important to see her is because we were still married, and I needed to file for divorce. After days of trying, I decided to go ask her best friend where she was. It took a lot of persuasion before her best friend finally told me that Ava had left North Carolina. Yes, you guys, I'm not joking. Ava left North Carolina without letting me know. I felt like running crazy the moment I found out. It was very shocking and I was practically spooked. Her best friend refused to tell me where she traveled to, and Ava refused to pick any of her calls or reply to her texts. I was very worried because I knew what she was trying to do. She had to be present to sign the papers when I eventually brought them to her. I was tired of keeping everything to myself, so I decided to go speak to my lawyer. I told him everything that had transpired, and that was when I got even more angry. Ava planned out everything from the get-go. She didn't just live because she wanted to. She left because she knew the rules that guide getting a divorce in North Carolina. Ava wants to keep me stuck in this marriage, so she ran away. My lawyer told me that one of the rules of getting divorced in North Carolina clearly states that one of the couples must have been living in North Carolina for 6 months prior to filing for divorce. I'd gone on a trip 3 months before I discovered Ava was cheating on me. That automatically meant that none of us had resided in North Carolina for 6 months straight yet. I hadn't even filed for divorce by then yet. There is also another rule that states that we both have to live separately for a whole year before filing for an absolute divorce. I cannot stand staying married to Ava for one more year. I just can't do it, and the thought alone is enough to make me boil with anger. The fact that Ava was aware of all this yet she decided to run away just proves that she is an excuse for a woman. My lawyer advised me to try my best to get her back in North Carolina so that we would only have to wait for a year before the divorce gets finalized. If I wanted to wait just 1 year, Ava needs to come back immediately or else everything would be in vain. She was trying to draw it out, and that was why she left. We also have a joint account, and that meant that she could still spend out of my money, and there was nothing I could do about it. The divorce in North Carolina doesn't really need one partner to prove why they need a divorce, but the other partner could try to draw it out. Ava knows exactly what she is doing, and she was trying to make sure that I didn't get a divorce. I took everything she did as a reason to be more ruthless and make sure I got the divorce. If only she knew that she's making me more determined, she would come back immediately. Even as I speak to you all right now, she's still somewhere unknown. I cannot get a hold of her, and not even her best friend is ready to reveal her location. I'm very impatient right now, and I'm not ready to play fair at all. I can swear that I'll do whatever it takes to make sure I get a divorce from Ava. She cheated, and now she wants to play the victim and hold the upper hand in the marriage? Maybe she thinks that I'll be patient with her just like I was patient with her alcohol addiction. I was just trying to honor the vows I made. But now that she broke the vows first, okay, more than ready to break the vows and do whatever it takes to teach her a lesson. I've decided to start with her best friend. The name of her best friend is Francia, and she has been at the house a couple of times. I know that she's the only one aware of Ava's location, so I'm determined to make sure I get the truth out of her. I don't care how I do it or if she tries to request something else. I know Francia fancies me, even though she's trying to be respectful just because of her best friend. I don't care for Ava anymore, so a little scandal wouldn't hurt. I'm going to figure something out, so I'll update you all soon. Update. Another update today. I hope you all have braces yourselves because it's about to get really messy. Broken vows and broken friendships are the most complicated thing anyone can ever be involved in. It's not my fault that I found myself in the midst of a broken friendship. I guess the drama just found me. I had to do what I had to do. So guys, I know you're all wondering what friendship I've seemingly broken. Well, it's the friendship between Ava and Francia. Yes, I did a bad thing, but I don't regret it. Ava deserves everything she's getting, and it's a shame that I've only just gotten started. How do I say this without sounding like an evil person? Well, I'll just say it as it is without mincing words. So, I decided to go to Francia and ask her for Ava's location one more time. I didn't have a particular plan in mind. I was just determined to get the truth no matter what. Francia spent minutes telling me how difficult what I was asking was. She made it clear that Ava warned her not to reveal her whereabouts. I listened to her, but I didn't leave. I told her I was not going to leave until she told me the truth. It was very stressful, and Francia was initially a hard nut to crack. But after another hour of unnecessary conversations and back and forths, Francia agreed to tell me where Ava ran off to on the condition that I went on a date with her. If you're shocked, I was even more shocked. I used to suspect that Francia was shy around me and would often blush, but I never really thought it was anything serious. When I said she fancied me in the last update, that was just me trying to be cocky. I never really thought it would get as far as it went, but I guess things are unpredictable. I was desperate to know where Ava ran off to, and I also didn't mind entertaining Francia if it would give Ava a taste of her own medicine. If not for legalities, my marriage was practically over. I wasn't ready to play fair, and I didn't mind making the game Ava started playing dirty. She's the one who confidently thinks that I'll never be able to get a divorce from her. Well, she has another thing coming. So, I went on a date with Francia, and after that, we went on another date. In fact, she told me where Ava ran off to on the very first date. I could have stopped seeing her back then, but I wanted to see where the date was headed. We spent nights together, and she started calling me a lot. I was surprised to see that she had no problem doing that to her own best friend. But, in my own sick way, I was very happy about it. I discovered that Ava ran off to Florida to stay with one of her aunts. I was not ready to stress myself and go look for her. That was never the plan. I just wanted to know how far away she was so I could make sure she ran as fast as she could and got the next flight to North Carolina. Even though she was not picking my calls and had seemingly blocked my phone number, I knew of a way I could make it work. Social media is a very strong tool, and I feel like I'm a fool for only just realizing that now. I had Ava as my friend on Facebook, but my plan wasn't to message her directly. I decided to post pictures of me and Francia together. When I say pictures, believe me that they were very romantic pictures, and if I didn't know the dynamic, I would have believed that we were a real couple. After making that post, I had no way to know if Ava saw it because it wasn't a Facebook story. I wanted something that would last a long time and not just 24 hours only, so she could see it even when she was not online. Days went by and I really thought that I'd wasted my time. I didn't hear from Ava even after making that post, and I was about to start making other plans. But just 3 days ago, my gatekeeper rushed into the house and told me Ava was at the gate and wanted to see me. It was at that moment that I knew that she had seen the most. Just like I'd expected, she rushed back as soon as she could just so she could find out exactly what has been going on behind her back. Of course, I asked the gatekeeper not to let her in. My main purpose of asking her to come back is not to see her or have a conversation with her. I need to get a divorce, and that's exactly what my plan is. I'd already filed for a divorce when she came back, and my lawyer said all we had to do was live separately for a full year before we can get an absolute divorce. Ava was and is still not aware that I'd filed for divorce. But it's important that I let her know, or else all my efforts would literally be in vain. The next day after Ava's arrival, I went to see Francia at her house. I don't know what to label my dynamic with Francia yet. She's cool and has a good vibe. I don't know if I plan on being in a serious relationship with her, though. I'm not hesitant because of Ava. In fact, I don't care about Ava's involvement in any of this. I'm just taking my time to analyze Francia and see if she's someone I'm interested in officially dating. For now, I'll just say we're having fun. I don't know if Ava followed me or she just happened to get to Francia's house at the same time as me. Anyway, we got there at the same time. She tried walking up to me, but I ignored her and got into the house. Francia wasn't aware of Ava's presence immediately because I didn't care to tell her, so he rushed to kiss me. I didn't mind returning the kiss. Ava happened to walk in at the same time and she decided to make a scene. Even as I write this, I'm still smiling in triumph. The look on her face was priceless. First of all, she looked like she needed a huge bath, and it was obvious that she'd been stress drinking again. But, for the first time ever, I didn't care about any of that. I was done caring for her, and I'm still done caring for her, lol. Where did caring for her get me? She cheated, and then tried to trap me in the marriage. She's practically like a stranger I never met, and I plan on things being that way forever. Ava tried to get her hands on Francia, and she actually scratched her face with her nails. But I didn't let her do more than that. Even though I didn't want to go anywhere close to her, I held her back and left some space between both of them. I noticed that Francia tried hiding in my back. Maybe she suddenly felt remorseful for her friend at that period, but it was none of my business. Just like the scheming woman Ava, she tried guilt-tripping Francia and accusing her of sleeping with her husband. At first, I was busy on my phone trying to call security, but I decided to stop when I heard Ava accusing me of cheating. Oh, that really caught my attention. It's her audacity for me. It was her audacity for me. Ava had the guts to accuse me of cheating after she single-handedly invited men into my house and deviled our marriage in the living room. Before that day, I used to wonder why our marriage had to end up in shambles, but that day I was immensely grateful to Ava for cheating on me. If she didn't cheat now, I'd have never known how wicked she was till it was too late. I'm glad that I literally dodged a bullet with her. My whole life could have been ruined if I just spent time taking care of a woman that couldn't control her alcohol and had the tendency to make poor choices confidently. She never told me of her alcohol problem while we dated. In fact, she didn't even drink alcohol at all and lied that she hated it. She practically tricked me into marrying her in the first place. Why couldn't she just say she went to rehab? No, she decided to be deceitful. But even after I found out the truth 2 years after our marriage, I'd been ready to forgive her and try to help her stop her addiction. I even had to wait so long to have a child because I knew she couldn't carry a child while she still found it hard to control her alcohol. But she chose to pay me back for my patience by cheating on me. I made it clear to Ava that I owed her no explanation. I refused to listen to her unnecessary speeches and made it known to her that I'd already filed for divorce. Ava was surprised when she heard me say that. Yes, she was really surprised to know that I went on with the divorce. She was so sure and confident that I was going to be stuck with her for life. Well, she definitely got the shock of her life from me that day because I made sure that I didn't mince any words. I told her that the divorce was happening whether she liked it or not. Ava held onto my collar and tried throwing herself at me. It was a very abnormal action and I had to control myself, or else I would have made the mistake of pushing her away. If I did that, I can assure you all that I didn't trust where she would have landed. She looked frail and weak, and it was obvious that she'd been wasting her time drinking again. If I pushed a person like that, I might end up being tagged as an abuser. So, I just grabbed her hands and took it off my collar. Ava didn't want to let me go. She kept calling me names and accusing me of making her life miserable. I don't know if she was aiming for emotional abuse, but none of it really worked on me. I'd made up my mind to cut all ties with her, and I did so with a big smile on my face. Her confidence about me never being able to divorce her had faded away, and she had to face reality quicker than she imagined. I know she felt like a fool for thinking she could tie me down to the marriage. She didn't expect how events turned out. I guess we both got the shock of our lives at the end of the day. Ava acted like she was going to go crazy right at that moment. Francia was scared and grabbed my hand. I knew that Ava was just trying to act out, so I'd believe she was really hurt and try to take back my words. But, unfortunately for her, I didn't care about her drama at all. I personally grabbed her hand and dragged her out of Francia's house. Francia didn't have a gatekeeper because it was a joint estate. They only had one gate, and Francia's house was quite far from the main gate. I told her she had to be very careful because Ava could show up anytime. I also told her to make sure she called the estate security anytime she needed help. That was all I did before I left her house that day. I had to go see my lawyer and discuss what our next steps would be. As an artist, I still have a lot of work to do. I don't work for anyone since I have my own studio, but I have people under me and we have clients. I also have an art exhibition coming up in 6 months' time, so I have to brace myself and get ready for work. I sell NFTs too, and it's something I've been obsessed with for a very long time. I'd spent so much time trying to get out of my marriage with Francia that I'd forgotten about how important my work is to me. I still need to make money, and that's why I've decided to focus on work and update you guys only when the divorce is finally finalized. So far, Francia and I have still been in contact and we meet up once in a while. I also have another girl I've had coffee with once. I really think that my hands are full, lol. I've got options. Honestly, I don't see anything wrong with that. After 4 years of staying married to a witch like Ava, I think it's okay to take my time when it comes to dating. I'm not trying to say that Francia is not a good choice. I don't just think I want to rush into a relationship with someone that's friends with Francia. They say birds of the same feather flock together, and I guess I'm not ready to meet the same birds twice. Well, I'll see how it goes. But, till then, I'll update you all when I hopefully get a full divorce from the witch. Update 2. I'm taking a very deep breath, guys, and I advise that you all do the same so you can brace yourselves before reading this update. I think it's been an interesting ride, even though it was a really big life-changing one for me. I mean, I had to adjust to a lot of things. But, after 1 year and 6 months, I'm at a better place, and that's why I decided to make an update to this post now. I think the world is a place where one learns and grows at the same time. I did get a divorce, but it wasn't the easiest thing in the world. In fact, I'll say this, and I'll say it confidently. This divorce has been the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Don't get it twisted. It wasn't hard because I found it hard to separate from Ava. Oh no. It was hard because I had to stay married to her for a full year after everything. Every day for that full year, I woke up angry and furious. But I had to be patient and follow the rules of North Carolina. At the end of the day, my patience was worth it, and I'm now a free man. Ava got the shock of her life on the last day our divorce was fully finalized. Even after a full year, she had been in denial and thought that the divorce wasn't going to happen. Unfortunately for her, Reality ended up hitting her with a very loud bang. Even after everything she tried doing, all her efforts were in vain. When I saw her on that last day, I knew she was miserable. Even now, I get calls from people saying she is worsened. But none of that concerns me because I'm not the one who made the choices for her. I wasted 4 years of my life trying to make her a better person, but she threw all that away and cheated. Now she's going through the toughest phase in her life, and I've turned a blind eye to everything. I'm even more happy that I was able to get her back in more ways than one. Her best friend betrayed her and made a move on me. I got a divorce and she's broke. I know you all already know everything that happened in the last 2 updates, so I'll just tell you all how Ava tried to make sure the divorce didn't happen. Yes, she tried to sabotage it again. Recall that I mentioned having an arts exhibition coming up in the last update? Well, after months of preparation, the day came 1 year ago. At that time, I only had 6 months before the divorce was finalized. I'd blocked Ava's number and stopped the gatekeeper from letting her into my house, so I didn't see her for those full 6 months. But Ava suddenly showed up at my art exhibition. Yes, she showed up there and tried to cause a scene. I'd worked for that day for 6 whole months, and I literally had sleepless nights to make sure everything was perfect. I knew that there was no way I was going to let Ava ruin it. Even when she showed up, I told the security to stop her from coming in and instructed them to drag her out. After that, I didn't see her for almost an hour, and I believed that she'd gotten tired and eventually left. Unfortunately for me, I'd gotten too relaxed and had forgotten all about her not knowing that she was going to show up again. If the security got relaxed and didn't realize that she had sneaked in. It was a lot of drama, and I can still vividly remember how furious I'd been. She tried causing a scene and throwing a fit, so I threatened to call the police and have her arrested. She left after some of our mutual friends spoke to her. I didn't really care after that because I was able to use that incident to my advantage in court. It wasn't as messy as I thought it would be. Maybe that's because she suddenly realized that she was fighting a lost battle. On the last day of our divorce getting finalized, I'd been at my happiest in a long time. Just the thought of being free made me very happy. I was even more happy that I didn't have to see her face ever again after that day. That was a very big deal for me, and it was one of the reasons I dressed my best, lol. I didn't need a seer to tell me before I knew how defeated Ava was. She looked like she found it hard to accept the truth. I didn't really care, though. It just felt good to know that she was going through it alone. I was, and I'm never going to put myself in that situation again. I got back at her in the best way possible, and that full year of waiting was actually worth it even though it was a frustrating year. After the divorce, I decided to take time off work and just live life as it comes for a while. I stopped seeing Francia because I don't want to commit to any relationship yet. I want to soak in this single life and do whatever I like. Francia tried to convince me, but I made it clear to her that my mind was made up. I've not really dated anyone seriously. I've just been trying to soak in the time I have off work. Talking of soaking things in, I'm currently on a relaxation trip. I decided to utilize my time and have as much fun as possible before going back to the crazy life of an artist. What a life-changing experience it has been. I, for one, will never forget everything that has happened. But I'm immensely grateful that everything that transpired did so early and not when it was too late. One thing I've come to realize is that no matter how bad something is, sometimes it's better to go through them fast and make the rest history. That's it, guys. I'm going back to enjoying my trip and hopefully I see a lady I like. Lol.